Oneg Shabbat Yismechu B'Malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Victore Oneg Shabbat
Zecher L'Maaseh V'Reishi Shabbat Zecher L'Maaseh V'Reishi Shabbat
Yismechu B'Malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Victore Oneg Shabbat Yismechu B'Malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Victore Oneg Shabbat.
I hope you all have a wonderful week ahead. Shabbat, what? You kidding? Are you sure? Huh. It seems that we're at the beginning, not at the end. Why would I do that? Oh, April Fool's. It's not a very good one, but it is the best I could come up with on short notice. I only had 365 days to prepare. My name is Barry Nicholsberg, although at the moment I shouldn't admit that. I do have the honor of being the cantorial soloist here at Temple Beth David. We are a proud member of the Union of Reform Judaism, and we are in Snellville, Georgia, just outside Metro Atlanta. As I said earlier, this is April 1st, 2022. It is also Adar second. It's not the second of Adar, it is the second Adar of the year. This is the 29th and final day of Adar. So tomorrow will be Rosh Chodesh. I would like to take a moment and thank the people who are working so hard to make all of this possible. To my far left, Frank Monteleone on guitar. Right here next to me on the left, that's Bobby Horowitz, lead guitar, and he does all the arranging of these songs, and he is also a tireless vice president for this synagogue. Heather Murray, Jim Murray. Back on the board, there's Denise Whitlock, our streaming specialist, Jeannie Nicholsberg, my wife, who will be reading whatever you decide to put in the chat box, unless it's something nasty. And finally, last but absolutely not least, Judy Kern, our board president, and the one who keeps this train running on time. We'll give a quick shout out to Andrew St. Clair and hope that now that it's April, you will be able to return and play the djembe for us yet again. Let's just take a moment and think about the coming of Shabbat. Let's just put the last week aside. Whether it was good, bad, all of the above, put it away. Let's free ourselves from any misgivings or guilt. Let's be ready to look for new happiness and bring the best of ourselves to new experiences during the week to come. With that, I invite Judy to come back up here. You might think it was not a back, but she's been up and back. I normally have a headset, and somehow it got fried, so I'm working off a handheld tonight. And Judy, you'll light the candles. Please follow along on page 121.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. I would invite you to turn to page 138 in the Mishkan Tefillah, our prayer book. As we get ready to sing Lecha Dodi, we will sing verses 1, 5, and 9. And on the 9th verse, we will turn around physically and or spiritually, face the door we came in, and greet the Sabbath bride. Page 138, Lecha Dodi. Lecha, lecha dodi, likrat, likrat, kala. Oh, I started on one key and you started on another. You had first. I'm going to give this whole thing one more time. Can we take it from the top, please?
Lecha dodi, likrat, likrat, kala. Panei, panei, Shabbat nikabela. Lecha, lecha dodi, likrat, likrat, kala. Panei, panei, Shabbat nikabela, la 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat, likrat, kala. Panei, panei, Shabbat nikabela. Lecha, lecha dodi, likrat, likrat, kala. Panei, panei, Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmi'anu el hanuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'liha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, Panei panei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, Panei panei Shabbat nikabela. Hitoreri, kiva orech kumi uri, uri shir daberi. Kivot Adonai alayich nili la 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 lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, Panei panei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, Panei panei Shabbat nikabela.
Please rise as we welcome the Shabbat bride. Bo'i v'shalom ateret bala, gam besimcha u'tzola, toch emoneh am sigola. Bohi chala, la 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 lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, Panei panei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, Panei panei Shabbat nikabela, la 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 lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, Panei panei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, Panei panei Shabbat nikabela. Thank you for joining us on that. If you would please turn to page 144, I will ask Bobby Horowitz to lead us in the Chatzi Kaddish, page 144.
Yikadal v'yikadash Shemei Rabbah Be'amad yivarach Yirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechonu v'yomechon Uv'chai d'chol Beit Yisrael Bagala, Bagala, Uvizman Kariv, Vimeru, Amen. Yeheshmei Rabba Mevorach, Le'alam U'al Me'al Maya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtavach, V'yitpar, V'yitraman, V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shemei D'Kudashah B'richu, Leila Min Kol Berchata V'shirata, Tushbechata V'nechemata, Damiran B'alma, V'yimeru, Amen.
Would you please turn to page 146 and rise for the call to worship, the Baruch. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch et Adonai Hamivorach. Baruch Adonai Hamivorach. Hamivorach leolam va'ed. Hamivorach. Hamivorach leolam va'ed. Would you please be seated? Turn to page 148. I'm going to ask Jim to lead us, starting in the middle of the page with Blessed Are You.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Sevot is your name. Ever-living God, you may reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim.
Amen. Please turn to page 151. I will lead you in reading. Please read along with me, starting with Wisdom and Wonder. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than the holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. With that, I would ask you please to rise as I will chant the Shema. You're welcome to join me. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Boshem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Please be seated. On page 154, you will find the V'ahavta, which I will chant again as you know it. Please chant it along with me. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol mi'odecha והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושינתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשופטך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאיכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. If you'll please turn to page 157, I will ask Jim again to lead us. Please join him starting with In a World, page 157. Oh, please join me on page 157. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in the dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. With that, I ask you please to turn to page 158 and join us in singing Mi Chamocha.
Ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la la, ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha ne'eva kodesh, Nora tehilot osef eleh, Nora tehilot osef eleh. Malachutecha ra'u vanecha, Rokei hayam miflim she'u Miriam, Se'eliyan li'arum, Se'eliyan li'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam ha'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam ha'ed. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha ne'eva b'kodesh, Nora tehilot osef eleh, Nora tehilot osef eleh.
If you will please turn to page 160, I invite you to join us in singing my favorite lullaby of all time, Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Shalom, Shalom, V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim. Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha, Ufrosh Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha.
Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Amen.
We started a sad prayer for the people of Ukraine 6 weeks ago. It only gets worse, so we continue to pray. Our God and God of our ancestors, bless the Ukrainian people in this, their dire hour of need. Help people everywhere understand the blessings of our lives and circumstances, to be vigilant, compassionate, and brave. Strengthen us when we are afraid. Help motivate us to action. Help all of us to understand that our silence is complicity. Help us to be generous with others, so that we raise each other up. Help us to be humble, knowing that as vulnerable as we feel, there are those at greater risk, and that it is our holy work to stand with them. Help us to taste the sweetness of liberty, not to take for granted the freedoms won in generations past, and we all may play a part to heal and nourish democracy. Source of all life, guide our world leaders with righteousness, strengthen their hearts and keep them from hardening, that they may use their influence to speak truth to power. May people of every nation raise their voices in the name of justice, peace, and equity for all. May we be strong and have courage to be bold in our action and deep in our compassion, to discern when we must listen and when we must act, to uproot blind aggression, intolerance, and violence in all of its forms. And finally, let us celebrate the many faces of God, reflected in the wondrous diversity of humanity, to welcome the stranger and the immigrant. Let justice well up like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
I would ask you to turn to page 164 and rise for the tefillah. Anananananana Adonai, Anananananana Saftai Tiftach, Anananananana Ufi Yagi Tahilatecha, Anananananana Adonai, Anananananana Saftai Tiftach, Ufi Yagi Tahilatecha, Adonai,
na 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 savtai tiftach. Na 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 ofi yagi tahilatecha.
Page 166.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Elohei Zilpah Elohei Bilhah Velohei Tamar Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Vehanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'konei Hakol V'socher Chazdei Avot V'imahot Umegula Livnei Bneihem L'ma'an Shemo B'yahava Melech Ozer U'Mashiach U'Magin Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, V'Yitzchak Sarah.
Page 168.
Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechaye Hakal Atah Rab Le'oshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechaye hakol v'rachamim rabim, somer noflim v'rofei cholim, umatir asorim, umkayem emunato, lishenei afar, mitkamocha bal givorot, umidom elach, Melech memid umchayeh umatzmiya mitshua v'ne'eman atah yod ha'akol Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol.
Page 170.
Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated. If you'll turn to page 181. Join me in reading, starting with We Reach. We reach for you, our God, from the quiet places. May we stand still for a brief moment and listen to the rain. Stand still for a brief moment and watch the play of sunlight and shadow on the leaves. For a brief moment, listen to the world. Let us stop the wheels of every day to be aware of Shabbat. Find the stillness in the sanctuary which the soul cherished. Renew the covenant of an ancient people. We need a quiet space to test the balance of our days, the weight of our deeds, against the heaviness of the world's demands. The balance is precarious. Steady us with faith. Quiet places and stillness where we will hear our own best impulses speak. Quiet places and stillness from which we will reach out to each other. We will find strength in silence, and with this strength, we will turn again to your service. Please join me in praying silently. going to come out of a moment of silence with one of our new favorite songs, Hamirah. I hope you will join at least in the chorus, because the words are pretty simple, hum and ha.
Hum ha ha, ha ha, hum ha ha, ha ha, hum ha ha, ha ha, hum. Hum ha ha, ha ha, hum ha ha, ha ha, hum ha ha, ha ha, hum. Hum ha ha, hum ha ha, hum ha, hum. Hum ha, hum ha, hum ha, hum. A merry rock, a merry rock,
המאירה לארץ, להרים עליה ברחמים.
a merry rock,
המאירה לארץ,
Ladrim aleha,
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 ברחמים וטובה מחדשת בכל יום תמיד וטובה מחדשת מעשה בראשית. Hum ha 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 hum ha ha hum ha ha hum hum ha ha hum ha ha hum ha hum.
a merry rock,
המאירה לארץ, ולהרים עליה ברחמים.
a merry rock,
המאירה לארץ,
Ladrim aleha,
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 ברחמים וטובה מחדשת בכל יום תמיד וטובה מחדשת מעשה בראשית. Hum ha hum ha hum ha
I ask you please to turn to page 371. You are welcome to read along with me, starting with May the 1. Just remember that after the women's names, we will also add Zilpah, Bilhah, and Tamar. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, Leah, Zilpah, Bilhah, and Tamar, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and for their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit, and let us say, Amen. If you have names that you would like to add to this week's Misha Berach list, please put them in the chat box, and Jeannie will read them aloud. Jeannie?
Linda and Steve Ely. Susan and Larry Aft. Emily Holler. Linda Ehrenstaff. Marcy Schulman. Nina Schulman. Joe Wagner. Sherry Silver. Barbara Frank. Lois and Alan Sorkin. Jack Frank. Arlene Conley. Brian and Sherry Segman. Mike Roth. Dennis Sadler. Lisa Ann Gaston. John St. Clair. Dawn St. Clair. Laney Roan. Marianne Roan. Patty Beeman. Leanne Dillard. Jack and Roxana Gomez. Sandy Tejan and Eddie Young. Tanya Hurst, Jerry Wells, Lisa Miller, Penny Elliott, Jackie Freeman, Don Freeman, Robert Whitlock, Barbara Whitlock, Terry Hurst, Isabel Segree.
Denise, do you have any names you'd like to add? Judy? Patrick? Jackie?
We're going to try this. We don't know if it'll work.
Ronnie Eggers, Linda Ely, Susie Horowitz, Ann Olin, Barb Yarber, and Susan Eilers.
Thank you. Wendy?
Sarah Gambrell, Peter Yarrow, Sandy Steinberger, Morris and Felice Schulman, Katie Adler, Katie Fink, Lyndon Steve Ely, Andrew Fine, all those still suffering from long-haul COVID, and the people in Ukraine and the poor citizens of Russia.
You have names to add?
Shannon Pointer, Ellie Freed, Rabbi Ronald Blooming.
Thank you, Barbara. David?
Mary D. Bonhawk, James Eldo Hartz.
Thank you. Frank?
David Spinelli, Bill and Jasmine Milligan, Nicole Bravante, Joel Lass, Catherine Seibel, Carmela Spinelli, Jim Wade, and Rabbi Fred Natkin.
Bobby?
Edwin Smith, Susie Horowitz, Keith Blue,
Heather?
Alexis Scalar and Laura Spencer.
Jim?
Jeff Sklar.
Okay. I will add David Baker, Mark Ponsard, Linda and Steve Ely, Margaret Pennington, Maria Zolar, Shelley Perkle, Teresa Martin, Andrew St. Clair, Robin Van Loo, Joanne Stein, Kevin Middleton, Brenda Gibson, Mickey D'Amato, Peter Yarrow, Anya Polara, Ben DeSalvo, Marie Plakos, Alden Mahler Levine, Scott Levine, the hundreds of millions of people around the globe who have been infected or at least affected, which makes probably everyone, by COVID-19. Especially for the citizens of Ukraine and their loved ones. With that, I would ask you please to join us on 371 as we sing Misha Berach.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Sheberach imotenu mikor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Thank you. We are still in the book of Leviticus this week. And yet, once again, I have read this parsha as if for the first time. It is that way every week. And every week, I need to just take a small piece. I've tried multiple things going on in that parsha, and it just doesn't work. And so tonight, since I do not believe in coincidence, I believe the Torah has once again spoken directly to us. And I trust that you will get that. It starts with priests in the role of purifying and identifying conditions that are considered ritually impure. There is no word in the English language for this pox that befalls people. You know, we have a tendency to say it's leprosy, but it wasn't leprosy because it affected the clothes, it affected the walls of the house, it affected anything and everything that was associated with that person. And because of that, the priests, seeing what was happening, would send that person into isolation and go back a week later. If it hadn't gotten any worse or it got better, the priest said, "You're free to come home." If it didn't, the person stayed there as long as is necessary. That may have been a lifetime. We said in the Torah, that person shall dwell apart outside the camp. We have become, unfortunately, familiar with the threat of infection, dealing with quarantining just in case we are infected, and true quarantining if an infection has been confirmed. We know exactly what it looks like to dwell apart. But neither this week's Torah portion nor the majority of modern resources concerning quarantine provide guidelines on how to re-enter society. Many of us are so concerned with identifying and isolating the problem that we overlook the human being who is isolated and forget to welcome them back into the fold. Or even that their renewed presence needs to be acknowledged at all. Luckily, we are now getting to the point where quarantine for medical reasons is becoming less common as immunities increase and people begin to adjust to a new normal. But there is another kind of infection that we have used as a reason to symbolically dwell apart from others since before COVID even started. I have come to think of it as the quarantine of ideas. More often than not, when we have discussions or disagreements, we tend to isolate ourselves from those whose opinions differ from our own, especially those who hold opinions we think they should not have. Seems like just about everyone I know. Unlike the biblical or medical quarantine, this isolation is used as punishment, as a way to shame others, either into conformity with the group or as an impetus for the undesired party to remove themselves from the discussion. Often the threat of such a social quarantine is so severe that it functions as a muzzle. Makes people too scared of social repercussions to actually convey their true opinions. This leads to a likely false assumption that the whole group believes the same way. And people who don't are too scared to speak up. Does any of this sound familiar? All of this is a vicious cycle, giving the inaccurate impression of consensus when in fact discontent may be simmering under the surface. The fundamental difference between medical quarantine and the isolation of ideas is that differences of opinion are not a disease and should not be treated as such. It would be more productive and more likely to actually address the issues if we peacefully address differences of opinion. We may not like what those we disagree with have to say. They may even make us uncomfortable. But we should still hear them out. How can we expect anyone to listen to us if we won't listen to them? Does this sound like the United States Congress to you? Does it seem like Snellville to you? Does it seem like every place to you? Because it is. To be sure, there are some ways of thinking, bigots, racists, anti-Semitics, or hate-based groups of thought that are straight out wrong. And we should be guarded against them. But even in these cases, isolating those holding these viewpoints does not actually fix the problem. It simply pushes the issue out of sight. Contending with these viewpoints can be exhausting and reminds us once again that distance can in fact be a blessing. Taking respite and time to dwell apart can indeed be healing. When we need to take a step back to care for ourselves, to cease engaging lest we harm ourselves or someone else, take the time. Many activists working for change speak of the necessity of taking a break. But like the biblical quarantining of lepers, our retreat from the community should be temporary. We must not lose sight of the fact that isolating those with dangerous beliefs can often exacerbate those convictions rather than ameliorate them. We are more likely to actually change hearts and minds when we demonstrate through our own words and actions that their beliefs may not be how we think, but we will listen. We can only do this through contact, not through quarantine. May we have the strength to realize that while sometimes distance is necessary, so too is drawing near once more to our community. Shabbat Shalom. I would ask you, please, to turn to page 586 as we prepare to chant the Aleinu. I would ask you, please, to rise physically and or spiritually. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hachol l'ateit gedula liotzer breshit shelo asanu kigoye haratzot v'lo samanu kemishbechot ha'adama shelo sam chelekenu kahem Aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korin u'mishtabim odim lifnei melech malchei hamelachim hakadosh baruch hu. Shalom tashamayim v'yoseh haaretz Moshe yakarov b'shamayim ima'al Ushinatzo B'kohei meromim Hu Eloheinu Eino Emet Malkeinu Echesulato Kakatu B'torato Yadata Yom V'hashlivota El Levanecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim Hashamayim Ima'al V'yal ha'aretz Page 588. For you spread out the heavens and established the earth. Your majestic abode is in the heavens above, and your mighty presence is in the loftiest heights. You are our God, and there is none else. In truth, you are our sovereign without compare, as is written in your Torah. Know then this day and take it to heart that Adonai is surely God in the heavens above and on the earth below. There is none else. Page 591. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'oretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Please be seated. Please turn to page 599. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. For each and every one of them, we say, Zichronam Livracha. May their memories always, always be for a blessing. If there is anyone in the period of Shiva, the first 7 days since someone passed, please let us know. No one online, no one here. Fine. How about Shloshim, the first 30 days? We are still in a period of Shloshim for Barbara Jo Babbitt and Sam Massell. We remember these who were close. They may have been members here or very close to members here. Larry Kramer, David Yarborough, Sylvia Cart, Rossi Davis, Jack Smith, Laura Russiak Rosen, Louis Jutzi, Michael Bernard, Annette Carter, Edna Dockerman, Robert Diskin, Erwin Finkelman, Mickey Kroll, Daniel Roach, Nicholas Collins, Ed Gallup, Frank Perrone, Barbara Jo Babbitt. Are there any other names you wish to add? We remember the following who died in years past during this time period. Dr. Malcolm Dorman, my beloved grandmother Dinah Nicholsberg, Sarah Stuckler, Henya Zaydel. Are there any other names you would like to add? I ask you please to rise as a congregation of one as we join those who are in mourning. On page 598, the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach chutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv imru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olam u'almei u'maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithalel v'yithalal shemei d'kedusha baruchu le'elam imchol b'chata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata da'miran bi'alma v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba b'mishma v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mroma, uyaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the one who makes harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, and let us say, Amen. Amen. It's time for announcements. If you have some announcements, please put them in the chat so Jeannie can read them. Jeannie, show is yours.
In keeping with current CDC guidelines, TBD has gone mask optional for those who are fully vaccinated. Masks are still required for anyone not fully vaccinated. Please consider joining us in the sanctuary to worship as a community. Please continue to read your TBD emails for announcements and event details. Sisterhood will be meeting this month to hold elections for officers for the upcoming year. Please check your emails for details. We want to thank Deputy Collins for keeping us safe tonight and every time he puts on his uniform.
Thank you. I have a couple things. First of all, I want to say congratulations to the following who will be celebrating a birthday here in the near future. Patricia Falbaum, Wendy Fine, Regina Sissel, I knew that. Jonathan Young, happy birthday to you all. I will also let you know that in 2 weeks, the Shabbat service will be pre-recorded. We're going to do it sometime between now and then so that we can be with our loved ones as you imagine you will be with your loved ones for Passover, the first night of the Seder. So just know that if you have names for the Mishaberach list or in memory of, you will need to get us those names before the 15th of April, because you will not have a chance to do that otherwise. With that, I would ask you please to rise spiritually and or physically for the priestly blessing. Yivarechecha.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May the Lord bless you and keep you.
Ya'er Adonai pano elecha v'yisunecha.
May the Lord's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you.
Yisad Adonai pano elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
The Lord's face turn toward you and grant you peace.
V'yasem lecha shalom.
May you go from strength to strength.